If a baby is coming, don't worry about what you got, what you don't got. Just throw on some gloves. All that baby needs is somebody to make sure it doesn't hit the floor. It can get really scary to be like, oh my gosh, we need this, we need Sure, that's for later. Okay. Just leave it alone. Just put on some gloves and catch the baby.
Hello, and welcome to the Art of Emergency Nursing podcast. This is where we share stories for inspiration, entertainment, and encouragement because we all know emergency nurses have the best stories. Now, here's your host, Kevin McFarland.
Hey everybody, Kevin McFarland here from the Art of Emergency Nursing podcast, and thanks as always for downloading this episode, and thanks for listening to the podcast. If you haven't done so yet, please go ahead and hit subscribe on this podcast so you never miss an episode, and don't forget to leave a rating and review. Things like that really help the podcast out and helps nurses like you find a podcast like this. My guest today is a former ER nurse and current OB nurse who has about 3 million friends on TikTok. My guest this week is the amazing Jen Hamilton. If somehow you haven't heard of her, she's a working nurse who also happens to be a content creator and a speaker. Not only that, she's an overall do-gooder. She is the founder of a national nonprofit called the Hot Mess Express. This is a group of moms that go and help rescue other moms when they're overwhelmed. Overall, Jen is a good egg, a positive voice in nursing, and someone I'm thrilled to have on the podcast. Please welcome my friend, Jen.
Yeah, so my name is Jen Hamilton. I have been a nurse for almost 12 years. It'll be 12 years here in a couple months. I started my career in the emergency department, and that was my everything. I was so jazzed to be an ER nurse. I did that for 6 years, and the sixth year that I was there, actually transitioned to management, and that cured me of my love of that. And so I kind of got to a point where I was like, anything but this. And it was one night in the ER. I was, yes, in management, but I had been working days and nights in the same day, working all overnight, not eating, not sleeping. And I found myself in another overnight, the solo triage nurse for 30 patients who had been waiting over 8 hours in the lobby. I was getting called all the names, and there were some pretty traumatic things that came in that night. The kind that, and I know that people will understand it when I say this, the kind that you don't forget, the ones that stick with you. I had two of them back to back.
Wow.
And I just got to a point where I can't sustain this. So I looked on the jobs page, and honestly, I was looking for a schedule change. I was just looking for another job that wouldn't have me at the hospital 7 days a week. And
Right?
so I found a job for labor and delivery, and it was a weekend job. And I was like, "Oh, weekends." But then I was like, "Ugh, labor and delivery." Because I think that most ER nurses agree that we are anaphylactically allergic to pregnant people. They
A-
walk in, "I don't
Amen.
care if I don't
Amen.
care if
They'll,
it's no, go
st-
away." Yeah.
they'll stand at the door and be like, "Get out of my ER. Get out.
Yes. Yes,
Go
go
upstairs."
You scare me. I don't like it if there's a patient I cannot see. So, yeah, that was scary to me. I remembered the only thing I really remembered from nursing school about labor and delivery was it was a very wet place. You know what I'm saying? There was a lot of juices everywhere.
Oh, okay.
I
Juices. Oh, come on now.
mean, okay, there's a lot of juices in the ER too, I have to say.
Sure.
There's a lot of wetness there,
Mm.
but it did not intrigue me in the way that I think most people think it did. But I shadowed, this was a Friday night that I was like, "F this place, get me out of here." I shadowed on Sunday, and then by the next Friday, I had, interviewed, had the job they gave me the job and everything, so it was a very quick process. Um, and then I was like, "This is so this gives me the same adrenaline that ER does, but in, shorter bursts, I guess."
It's
The way that
it it's that kind of adrenaline based kind of job too.
Yeah, exactly, and drama. Also, the drama is
Oh,
there.
all the drama. All the drama.
Yeah. I worked with another nurse who also came from the ER, and the way that we explained it was that, in the ER, your heart rate is always a little bit elevated, right? You're seeing stuff all the time, so it's a little bit elevated all the time, so that when something crazy happens, it goes up a little bit, but it's not too much of a jump, right? But in labor and delivery, everything's going smooth, your heart rate's 62 on the regular, and then when something crazy happens, it's 140, you know? So, you get the same kind of, adrenaline drama that you do in the ER, but it's very specific usually. So there's the opportunity to kinda be, instead of a jack of all trades, which I was in the ER, like, I know a little bit about everything, I can take care of you. In labor and delivery now, having been doing it for so many years, like, we have just probably 5 or 6 emergencies that we see.
Yeah.
There's very rarely times where I'm like, "Oh, no, what do we do?" Um, so I love that part of it, that I can walk into a situation and feel that same calmness. I'm so grateful for my ER experience, because I have this level of calm about me in the chaos. But anyways, I got this job on labor and delivery. The pandemic hit. I ended up downloading an app called TikTok. I'm sure no one has heard of that. And I started just making videos about labor and delivery because a lot of our patients are getting their perinatal education on the internet, and a
Mhm.
lot of time making decisions based on the things that they see on the internet that may or may not be true. So I started making videos. Some of them are silly, some of them are educational, some of them are touching, but somehow I have amassed 3.4 million friends on there. And my life is crazy now. So I have the opportunity to talk to nurses and educate patients, and it's just an amazing life.
That's amazing. 3.5 million people follow you? Holy cow, that's a lot.
Yeah. It's a few more friends than I ever thought I would have in my life.
Just with the podcast, I'm like sometimes amazed that like I'm like, wow, this many people listen to this podcast. I was like, I thought it was gonna be like me and my 5 family members that listen to the
Yeah.
podcast. And
Yeah.
sure enough, I've been blessed with that more people like that, more people than that dig this. But
Oh yeah.
3.5 million, holy cow.
It's
Do you
it's
do you get recognized all the time?
Yeah, and it's always fun too because, I just see them as friends I've never met before. My husband and I went to lunch yesterday and the waitress was like, "I really love your TikToks." And then as we were leaving, I was checking out at the cashier place and the cashier was like staring at me and she's like, "Do you watch TikTok?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she said, "You look just like this nurse that I follow on there." And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." And she's like, "No, no, it's not." She started crying, and I was like, "I did not ever think that I would have this effect on people." I was like, "I hope these are good tears." But,
That's cool.
yeah, it's so fun. It's so fun to meet people who, appreciate what you do in the comfort of your own bed
It's
talking to a phone.
right? It's super humbling. Like, it's super humbling to me. It's super
Yeah.
humbling. Like, I had one woman, I was at an ENA conference. I had one woman come up and she like gave me a hug. And she goes, "I feel like we're best friends." And I was like, "Me too." And I was like, "I have no
Yeah.
idea who you are." But
Yeah.
but it's just super cool. And for that many people, holy cow, that's just amazing. That's very cool.
Thank you.
So how exciting. Now now is it still mostly TikTok or like, so I don't look at TikTok as much, but I see all your videos on Instagram,
Yeah,
which
so I have about 300,000 on Instagram. I will say TikTok is my home, Instagram is my beach home, it's like the place that I go every once in a while. Instagram can be ruthless. I find that there's Instagram and Facebook. I think that, it's not as kind of a place all the time, so, I find myself more at home on TikTok, but yeah, I am there, I am in all the places, just more on TikTok for sure.
that's very cool. That's very cool. I downloaded TikTok and got an account on TikTok, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I could start doing some videos." Yeah, because I do videos all the time on Instagram,
Yeah.
but I haven't really jumped into TikTok much. And, like, it's, like, every time I open it up, I'm like, "I don't know." So,
Yeah, you really need to try it. It's
I
the
feel
it's
old saying that, so I'm like, "Ah, it's what the kids use, I don't know."
health trend.
Well, how exciting is that? And what a cool way to influence a lot of nurses.
Mhm.
Um and really kind of make a change in nursing. Like that's amazing
That's the goal for sure.
for sure. That's cool. And now, what people may not know about you is that you, before you became a labor and delivery nurse, you did that ER piece, and apparently some of your fans knew that because your fans were like, "Oh my gosh, you got to get her on the podcast."
Really? I love that they were vouching for me for
Yeah,
that.
they're like, "Oh, you got to get her on the podcast."
Yeah.
and then and then there was a story, and I seen on one of your TikToks there was a story about Pam Bartley being responsible for one of your pregnancies,
It's
and
true.
I'm like, I love Pam Bartley, love
Yeah.
Pam Bartley. Are you do you live near her? Are you, like, in that
No, so I took one of her, uh, like, uh, what do you call it? CEN, courses in Fayetteville, North
okay.
Carolina, which is a few hours from where I am. Where does she live even? I know she
She's
has, like, a farm.
she's like a farm in, like, South Carolina. I think it's either
Yeah,
South Carolina or North Carolina. Like, it's all those small states on the East Coast,
yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
where
Yeah.
are you, by the way?
I'm in Asheboro, North Carolina, so, like, right smack in the center of the state. So
Okay.
I traveled to,
Okay.
Fayetteville for this little 2-day, Pam Bartley course. Love her, by the way, she's so fantastic.
Amazing, amazing woman,
Such a
like,
dynamic educator. Like,
huge
there
fan.
were things I learned in that course that I still remember, even though you take it to get the letters behind her name.
Yep.
Everybody does the same thing, but yeah, she's such a dynamic educator. She has just such fun ways of helping you learn. But yeah, she is responsible for my second child because, going to that, uh, class, I had left my birth control on the couch. Uh, and fun fact, this is way too much information, but we'll just get into it. So, I passed out whenever, I was getting an IUD placed. It was very painful, and whenever I woke up, I had apparently kicked my doctor in the face. You know how some people when they vagal, they like stretch out, like their muscles tense up? Kicked him, and then whenever I woke up, I was like, "Did you do it?" And he's like, "Oh, hell no. You're on pills now." So, but I'm such a bad pill taker that I taped my birth control pack to my phone and set an alarm so that I would not get pregnant. And it worked. It worked for 3 years. My mom said, "You look like a hoe." And I said, "At least I'm not a pregnant hoe." So yeah, I missed my birth control, but I took it as soon as I got home the next day. But with birth control, if you don't take it at the exact same time, you can get pregnant. And, I knew it, like, as soon I should've yeah, I knew it. I was like, "Dang." So, yeah, I blame her for the blessing of my second child.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Well, I mean, she's caused a lot of things, but I don't think that's been one of them. So,
Yeah,
I'll
I think
definitely
yeah, I think that she should own that. That's what an honor to be to bring life into the world.
right, right, to be responsible for bringing in a life.
That's right.
Well, I'll definitely tag her when I post this because
Please
she'll
do.
just think that's hilarious. So that she did, I did a podcast with her a long time ago about the CEN review, and it's still like it's like in my top 5 most downloaded episodes. Like she's
Really?
yeah,
Yeah.
and we keep threatening to do another one, and we just haven't gotten it together and done it. So we need to.
Pam,
It's
get on
been
the
years.
podcast.
Pam,
Yeah,
get on the
Pam, when you
podcast.
listen to this, it's your turn. You're up.
Yeah, that's right. It's time to step back up. So how funny is that? That's an amazing story. So I want to tap into your specific experience because I think that again we talk about that kind of rift between labor and delivery and ER nursing. So so first let me tell you a little scenario. And I don't know if we can leave this in the podcast or not. I don't know because I try
Figure
to
it out.
I try to keep stuff from work out of the podcast because I
Yeah,
don't want to get in trouble. And then
right.
every now and then, like I try to stay under the radar, and then
Yeah.
like all of a sudden someone at work will be like, "Hey, I listened to your podcast," or "Hey, I didn't know you had a podcast." I'm like, "Oh,
Uh-huh.
yeah, okay." Yes. And it's not like I hide it, but I'm not like,
Had
like "Hi, I'm
yeah,
Kevin. Hi, I'm Kevin. I'm a podcaster."
right.
Um, so I and how does